Okay, so today we're going to like really get into something that's super relevant for big organizations, those with more than 1,000 employees.
Yeah.
And that's, the whole deal with bringing AI in ethically,
Hmm.
not just like checking a box, but figuring out why having a human-centered approach is like totally crucial
Right.
for, making these partnerships between humans and machines actually work well and be successful.
Yeah, absolutely.
So for this deep dive, we've got two main resources that we're looking at. Ethische KI-Adaption in großen Organisationen
Okay.
and the Gemini Research, LEANI.PDF.
Gotcha.
And these look at, research and some practical examples from between 2021 and 2025.
Right.
And what we want to do is pull out the most useful insights about how to integrate AI
Yeah.
ethically,
Hmm.
and with a focus on people.
For sure.
So, we're not going to get too bogged down in the technical stuff,
Yeah.
but hopefully making it really clear for you.
Yeah.
And so to help us with this, we're going to use the LENI Framework. So that's Learn, Engage, Navigate, and Innovate
Sounds good.
as a way to kind of understand the different stages of this whole ethical AI adoption thing.
Hmm.
So let's jump right in with the first phase. Learn.
Okay.
Now, the sources are like pretty clear that this ethical AI thing can't just be left to the IT department.
Right.
We need like a much broader understanding across the whole organization.
Definitely. And that's a key point that both of our sources really emphasize. Like, as AI becomes more and more common, you need a basic understanding of it way beyond just the technical roles.
Yeah.
The Ethisch adaptation paper states that directly.
Right.
And we've got this WIFO study that shows just how much AI is already being used in Austrian companies.
Okay.
So this isn't something that's going to happen in the future. It's happening now.
Yeah.
Yeah. That makes this foundational understanding even more important.
Exactly. And it's not just knowing what AI is.
Right.
This HWZ Swisscom research found that not getting machine learning actually slows down how fast small businesses adopt AI. And the Gallagher survey showed these real gaps in AI skills across different business functions.
Yeah, for
So it's like you could have a company invest in the most up-to-date AI tools, but if the people there don't know how to use them,
right,
or even what they can do,
yeah, they're going to hit a wall.
it's not going to work, right?
Exactly.
And the key takeaway, I think, here isn't just that everyone needs to know about AI.
Yeah.
It's that when you have that baseline understanding, your whole organization can spot opportunities.
Absolutely.
And risks that you might otherwise miss.
Right.
And that turns AI from being just this tech thing in a silo to something that the whole company can benefit from.
Yeah, exactly. It becomes a company-wide asset.
Yeah.
What I found really interesting is how the sources talk about tailoring the learning approach to the different roles and levels within a company.
Right.
And this idea of continuous learning. It's not a one-size-fits-all kind of thing.
Okay.
Like the Ethisch adaptation document says, training programs and workshops should cover the technical basics for sure, but also data competence,
right,
AI fundamentals,
yeah,
and the ethical stuff we talked about.
And that's where this idea of human-centered AI or HCAI comes in.
Yeah.
It's not just about what people learn about AI, but how they learn it.
Exactly.
Focusing on personalized learning experiences, making sure it's accessible to everyone, and actually encouraging collaboration between humans and machines, even in the learning process.
Right.
It's about showing the kind of partnership we want to see with AI adoption right from the start.
Totally.
And so connecting this to the bigger picture for you listening, establishing a solid ethical foundation with clear guiding principles is like super important.
Absolutely vital.
And the Ethisch adaptation paper suggests 6 key principles: beneficence, transparency, non-maleficence, autonomy, justice, and data protection.
Right.
And these aren't just like abstract ideas.
No, they're not.
They need to be at the core of any AI strategy a company develops.
Exactly.
And you'll notice there might be some overlap between these principles. And they might even seem to pull in different directions sometimes.
Right.
For example, how transparent do you really need to be when you're also considering potential negative impacts?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Figuring out those nuances is like a key part of building a strong ethical foundation.
Absolutely.
And then looking beyond individual organizations.
Yeah.
The UNESCO recommendation on the ethics of artificial intelligence,
Okay.
which is considered the first global standard in this area,
Right.
lays out some really important core values about human rights, human dignity, peaceful and just societies, diversity, environmental integrity.
That's a lot to think about.
Yeah, it is.
But it shows that even though each company needs its own ethical guidelines, there's this bigger global discussion happening
Okay.
about the responsible development and use of AI.
Yeah, and that raises a good question for those in charge. How do you actually put these high-level principles into practice every day?
Yeah, that's the tricky part.
The Datalogix case study gives us a concrete example.
Okay, tell me more.
This health software company included an ethics charter as part of their business and technology strategy.
Interesting.
It wasn't just something they wrote down and forgot about.
Right.
It actually guided their decisions and how they developed things.
That's good.
And the Ethisch Chi adaptation source specifically highlights this mid-sized company as a good example
Okay.
of putting ethical considerations first and foremost.
That makes sense.
Okay, so we've got that foundational understanding from the learn phase.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's move on to engage.
Right.
This is all about getting your people involved in this AI journey.
Absolutely. And the research really emphasizes that
Yeah.
actively involving employees throughout the whole implementation process is crucial. Both our sources are clear about that.
Right.
It's not just about avoiding pushback from people.
Although that can happen.
Yeah, of course.
But more importantly, it's about making sure the AI that's adopted actually meets the needs of the organization
For sure.
and the people who work there.
Exactly.
And the sources say that participatory approaches are really important for understanding and incorporating human needs and expectations right from the start.
Yeah, especially in the context of human-centered AI.
Right.
So it's about making people feel like they're part of this process,
Yeah.
not just having new tech dumped on them.
So if you're in a leadership role, what are some concrete steps you can take to encourage this engagement?
Yeah, what can people actually do?
Well, the sources point to open and honest communication
Okay.
about why you're using AI and how it might impact things.
Transparency is key.
Yeah, no surprises or hidden agendas.
Right.
Then there's actively getting input from employees when making decisions about AI applications and working together to figure out the goals for how AI will be used.
Okay, so collaboration is essential. And the Ichthysia Chi adaptation paper actually states that companies that prioritize open communication and are transparent about AI's purpose and impact and give employees real chances to participate
Right.
are much more likely to get everyone on board and ensure that AI is adopted responsibly.
Yeah, makes sense.
It does. When people understand what's happening and feel like they have a voice,
Yeah.
they're more likely to accept the changes.
Right. And for large organizations, as well as public sector groups and even smaller companies, having good strategies for managing change is super important.
Definitely.
The sources mention a 4-phase model for AI change processes.
Okay.
First, you define clear goals and assess the potential impact.
Right.
Second, you do detailed planning and design.
Gotcha.
Third, you thoroughly prepare and implement. And finally, you do ongoing evaluation and adaptation.
Right. So it's a continuous process.
Yeah, it's a structured roadmap for navigating what can be a pretty big change for an organization.
Yeah, for sure.
What I found really helpful is how they recognize that different types of organizations will face different challenges.
Right. Not everyone's starting from the same place.
Exactly. Small businesses, for example.
Yeah,
They often need to look outside for expertise and help in this area.
that's true.
The study our sources talk about regarding Swiss SMEs needing more support really highlights this.
And for public administration,
Right.
with their complex structures and high demands for transparency and accountability, the change management process needs to be really carefully adapted to those specific needs.
It's great to know that resources like the LENI system platform exist,
Yeah.
offering practical design approaches and real-world examples for managing AI-driven change within companies. It takes the conversation beyond just abstract ideas and provides real guidance.
For sure.
Okay, so let's move into the navigate phase.
All right.
This is where organizations proactively figure out and deal with the potential problems and risks that come with AI.
Right. So getting ahead of the curve.
Yeah, exactly. We're talking about things like accidental biases and algorithms. The difficulty in understanding how these so-called black box AI systems make decisions.
Yeah, that can be tricky.
Serious concerns about data privacy and security.
Of course.
And the complex question of who's responsible when things go wrong.
Big question.
The Deloitte study mentioned in our sources is pretty eye-opening.
What does it say?
They found that almost 2/3 of organizations have launched generative AI without putting in place proper governance controls.
Wow, that sounds like a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, it really does.
And like the Ichthysia Chi adaptation paper points out, the nature of some AI models can lead to these black box situations
Right.
where you can't really see how decisions are being made.
Yeah,
And that lack of transparency can make people lose trust in the technology.
definitely.
And it makes it harder to find and fix any biases or mistakes.
It's like having a really complicated machine
Yeah,
where even the people who built it can't fully explain why it acts up sometimes.
that's a good analogy.
And that's where regulatory frameworks like the EU AI Act become really important.
Okay.
It's not just about general ethical principles anymore.
Right.
It's moving towards actual laws,
Mm.
prohibiting some high-risk AI practices,
Mm-hmm.
and setting clear rules for things like data protection and cybersecurity.
So it's getting serious.
Yeah, it shows that governments are recognizing the need for responsible AI development and use.
And to tackle the black box issue,
Yeah.
the concept of explainable AI or XAI is really important for building trust and making sure people are accountable.
Mm.
XAI is all about making the reasoning behind AI's decisions transparent,
Okay.
so we can understand why it makes certain choices.
And if you can understand the logic,
Right.
you're in a much better position to spot problems or biases
Definitely.
and to justify why you're using it, especially for critical applications.
Absolutely.
The sources also talk about the value of using established service logic principles and ethical frameworks
Okay.
as a structured way to navigate these complicated issues. This involves drawing on the ethical principles we discussed earlier.
Like the ones from UNESCO, IBM, and BVDW.
Right.
Okay.
As well as doing thorough ethical impact assessments, or EIAs,
Right.
and looking at relevant national guidelines like the Austrian one for digital administration and ethics.
So a multi-pronged approach.
Yeah, the Ethickai adaptation document specifically highlights the importance of EIAs
Mhm.
as a crucial tool for making sure AI is used responsibly.
I see.
These assessments basically make organizations think through the possible ethical consequences of their AI systems
Okay.
before they're rolled out widely.
So thinking ahead.
Yeah, and the Austrian guideline is a practical example of how governments are starting to offer specific ethical guidance for different sectors,
Right.
focusing on things like data protection, privacy, potential biases, and broader AI ethics.
Interesting.
Basically, the navigate phase is about having a systematic and ongoing approach to managing risk.
Mm-hmm.
This includes actively identifying potential risks, carefully assessing how big of an impact they could have and how likely they are to happen, putting specific measures in place to reduce those risks,
Okay.
and then constantly monitoring and reviewing how well those measures are working.
So it's not a one-time thing.
No, it's a continuous process throughout the entire AI life cycle.
Makes sense.
Okay, so now we come to the final stage of the LENI framework, Innovate.
All right.
This is where companies move from understanding and managing AI to actually using it
Right.
to make progress and create new value.
And the sources say that big organizations, public administrations, and even small businesses are increasingly using AI for innovation, but with a growing understanding of the ethical and human-centered stuff we've been talking about.
Exactly. The AI adoption rate data from the LIFO and HWZ Swisscom studies really show this upward trend.
AI is becoming more mainstream.
Yeah, and the potential for AI to drive innovation is huge.
Absolutely.
It can help improve strategic decision-making,
Mm-hmm.
optimize how efficiently things operate, personalize how you interact with customers,
Right.
develop completely new products and services,
Wow.
and boost employee productivity.
It can do a lot.
Yeah, the sources have tons of examples of AI being used across different industries to achieve these things.
And it's good to see all these initiatives and strategies at both national and European levels
Mm-hmm.
designed to support responsible AI innovation.
Right, things like projects like CAR-RL,
Okay.
which aims to make human-centered AI more accessible to small and medium-sized companies.
Yeah, it's important.
This shows a real effort to encourage innovation in a way that lines up with ethical principles.
What's really key in this Innovate phase
Yeah.
is how the core principles of human-centered AI are guiding these innovation efforts.
Right, it's not just about innovating with AI.
Exactly.
It's about doing it in a way that actually makes people's abilities better,
Yeah.
respects basic human values,
Mm.
and fosters genuine and productive collaboration between humans and machines.
Right, so working together, not replacing humans.
Exactly. And the definition of HCI we find in our sources,
Mhm.
which is the extension of human abilities and the alignment of AI with ethical and societal values, really captures this idea.
And the Kisu project is a great real-world example of this human-centered approach to AI innovation
Okay.
within the public sector.
Tell me more.
By focusing on developing AI front ends that are both easy to use and secure,
Mm-hmm.
And by actively involving potential users in the design process,
Right.
they're putting the needs and experiences of the people who will be using these tools first.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So to wrap it all up,
Mm-hmm.
the key takeaways from each phase are all connected.
Okay.
Learn is about building that essential foundation of AI understanding and ethical principles.
Right.
Engage emphasizes how crucial it is to get your employees actively involved and manage the change as well.
Mm-hmm.
Navigate focuses on figuring out and reducing potential problems,
Yeah.
using established frameworks and regulations.
Right.
And finally, Innovate highlights how AI can be a powerful force for progress.
Mhm.
When it's guided by ethical considerations and a human-centered approach that prioritizes collaboration.
Instead of replacement.
Exactly.
And it's important to note that these phases aren't separate steps.
Right.
What you learn in the learn phase makes employee engagement in the engage phase more meaningful,
Yeah.
which then helps you navigate the complexities of the navigate phase, ultimately leading to more responsible and impactful innovation in the final phase.
Absolutely. It's a continuous cycle.
Successfully integrating AI in an ethical and effective way isn't just about using the technology.
Right. It's about much more than that.
It requires a commitment to ongoing learning at all levels.
Yeah.
Everyone in the organization needs to be actively involved.
Mm-hmm.
You have to thoughtfully and constantly think about potential problems.
Right.
And your innovation strategy needs to put people at the center.
Absolutely.
So as you consider all this,
Yeah.
here's a final thought. How can the principles of human-centered AI not only guide how large organizations adopt this technology, but also inspire the development of AI tools that are more helpful and empowering for people in their everyday lives?
That's a great question.
And what might the broader societal benefits be of truly prioritizing the human element as we move forward in this age of AI?
It's something to think about.
It definitely is. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.